Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about the way in which we've all become addicted to devices. We're discussing the ways in which we get hooked in and can't get out, and because Martin read a book about it, he's got a plentiful supply of quotes and facts. We're also talking about the allure of games and why it's so much fun riding a horse and gathering wild herbs. Why is technology so addictive?
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right.
I'm fine, thank you. I think you've. It's good to see you're taking the COVID situation that seriously. You wear a mask for our Zoom meetings, even though we're several miles apart. Good on you.
You can't be too careful, can you?
Yeah, you can't. But it might make your voice a little bit muffled during the recording, which is actually, on reflection, that's probably not a bad thing.
Excellent. What else is new?
Well, lots of things really, which obviously I've got notes for. Did you want me to ad lib at that point? Because I'm not good at that.
All right. I tell you what. Let's cut the ad libbing and let's get straight onto the meat of the program. What is it you want to talk about this week?
I wanted to talk to you about my working title this week is The Rise of Addictive Technology.
Oh. So is this one going to be about addictive technology?
It is, yeah. Well, yeah, you read between the lines. I like that.
Yeah, great. Sounds good.
Does it sound all right? Do you know, are you on board with that now?
Yeah, I'm going to resist the temptation to check my phone while we're talking about this.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. Well,
check
we'll come on to
the feed or my Instagram account.
Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, there's a lot about it at the moment. And my daughter Lizzie, she listened to an audio book called Irresistible, which explores this. And she bought me a hard copy because she thought, and sent it to me because she thought it'd be right up my street, and it absolutely was.
You'd have been better off with the easy copy, wouldn't you?
With the what?
The easy copy rather than the hard copy.
Well, yeah, I did understand the hard copy. I can, I'm all over it. It was the thing was, I mean, that the book you can download that onto your Kindle, so you'd be reading it on a device that it's actually saying that there's problems with.
Yeah,
so
I personally, I would never do that because I'll tell you for why. Because I did experiment for a while with downloading books onto. It wasn't a Kindle; it was an iPad. Although I did borrow my daughter's Kindle for a while, I couldn't get on with it at all. It's not the same. I need to have a physical book. I can't be reading virtual books. That's a bridge too far as I'm concerned.
Perhaps it's a generational thing because I think I still like to have a CD or an LP rather than an MP3 because there is something tangible to hold and to feel.
Something tangible to put back in the right sleeves.
Exactly. You can't. MP3s, they sort themselves out.
Yeah, I thought that would appeal to you.
Well, no, I like the chore of going through and making sure they're not out of order.
There is usually a sort of predefined order, isn't there, with digital media? Except when I get the numbering wrong for the episodes of Sideways.
Yeah, you do that from time to time, but it keeps me on my toes.
Anyway, I've got you off track, haven't I?
Yeah, you have, actually. I was just looking at my notes there. I was thinking. I'm just going back. Yeah, so just going back to the book, all right?
This one?
That's it. You've got a hard copy yourself, yes. And it looks like you're about halfway through, if that's
to be honest, I tried to skim read some of it today because I thought you might try and catch me out, which you probably will.
I won't do that. That wouldn't be nice, would it, in front of our listeners? to make you look a fool. You do a good enough job of that without my interaction.
That's right. I'll just edit it out if you do.
Well, anyway, as you know, that book is written by Adam Alter, who is a professor of marketing in the US, and he's written quite a few books, a number of which have been on the bestseller list. So he knows, he's a decent author. And I was watching him interviewed recently by Russell Brand, who was talking about the interview was about the book. And
Brandy, as I call him.
As you call him, the brand star. He's but this Adam Alter fella, he's all over this. He's got a real handle on this subject.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most telling points of the book is, which you would have read because it's right at the start. Excuse me.
Bob Fleming. We'll frighten the badgers.
I'll leave a reasonable gap there for editing purposes.
I won't be editing that out.
Anyway, right at the start of the book, in the prologue, the author explains that when the iPad was launched in 2010, Steve Jobs went on this massive marketing campaign, enthusing about how brilliant the device was.
Yeah.
So you could listen to it. You could listen to your music on it. You could store photos, play games.
Yeah.
You could have thousands of apps on there, including Facebook and YouTube. And that everyone should have one. Very hard-hitting campaign that he went on, but then he refused to let his own children have them. I mean, that tells us a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. I do remember reading that. As you say, it's right at the start of the book, so I did get past that.
Good, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you got past the next bit, which because he used the mantra then that drug dealers use, which is never get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
Which the lad Jobs has taken that to a different level, hasn't he?
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, again, part of the early part of the book, which you would have gone through and read, is I found quite fascinating because it looks at the early cases of addiction in general human behaviour. And I found it quite interesting that they'd found the remains of Neanderthal man and they could tell that he'd been chewing the betel nuts, and they know that the betel nut gives you a bit of a buzz, but it turned their teeth black and their teeth fell out, and so it was an early example, an illustration as how humans will carry on with their destructive behaviour despite knowing what the bad consequences are.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Have you been known to chew on a betel nut?
I haven't tried it, and I wouldn't now. No, I know what the consequences are. Well, if it's anyway mind altering, it's not on my radar anymore.
Yeah,
can't be doing that. But the second point I found quite funny early on as well was when they were talking about Sigmund Freud.
Oh yeah,
Well, he discovered cocoa leaves, didn't he? The early form of cocaine, and he thought he'd found the elixir of life.
Yeah.
When he went out and walked for miles and miles, and he felt really great. But then he had the crushing lows that comes after when you take cocaine, and then the cravings turned up, and so the cycle began. But he was addicted for many years, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a number of strange idiosyncrasies, did Freud.
I want to get back to the book. There's a couple of good quotes in there that I wanted to explore with you as well. The first one was convenience weaponizes temptation. Now, this comes up quite a lot in groups when people are insistent for some reason on having a bottle of vodka tucked away, or they don't get rid of all the alcohol in their house when they are going into recovery.
Just in case.
Just in case, it's a bit like smokers will say, "Oh, I've always kept a packet of ciggies in my kitchen cupboard.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're there, and I don't get panicky and that sort of thing." But with alcoholism, it really is a no-no. I've known so many people that have tried to take that approach, and it just doesn't work. But I think when we're talking about addictive technology, I mean, these devices that we're talking about, iPads, mobile phones, they're so portable, aren't they? And you can access the internet, with 5G and Wi-Fi everywhere. And although these devices were designed to make life easier, some of them, and I'll go on to this in a minute, can end up setting us sort of obsessive goals. I'm thinking at this point mostly about like Fitbits. I don't know if you've got a Fitbit.
No, I do not have a Fitbit for exactly the reasons that you're going to go on and pontificate about. Yeah.
I mean, it's they produce numbers that pave the way to sort of obsessive behaviour, don't they?
With things like that, So if you have, I think Fitbits probably some of the flashier models probably track your sleep, don't they? And
they do, They do other things. Yeah.
Yeah, they do other things as well. But with something like tracking your sleep, that's a terrible idea if you don't sleep well, tracking your sleep, because all it does is it creates more anxiety about something that's already difficult.
Yeah.
So whether it's your fitness goals or, your heart rate or your sleep, if you struggle with those sorts of things, the last thing you want to be doing is measuring them.
I agree.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I agree, but I could see that addictive tendency creeping in. Obviously, during the early part of lockdown, when we were allowed fleetingly out of our properties to go and to have an hour's exercise.
Yeah.
So I try and walk as far as I could within that hour. And And then after a few days, I thought, I'll download one of these apps that tells me how far I've gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found myself trying to get just to beat my last record. And I could feel this addictive behaviour coming in. And then when they relaxed it further so that you could go out for as long as you like, I was then going out for, up to, 2.5 hours. I'm just trying to walk a little bit further than I did last time. I was going for miles.
You're like Forrest Gump.
I was. And I just thought, this is not good. It wasn't, I was getting home absolutely knackered. It wasn't doing me any good at all. But I was obsessing over this beating my last record. Like having a personal best. I know when I used to do half marathons, if I didn't come in under my previous personal best, I was horrified. I thought it was a real failure.
That makes sense. That makes sense now, because I can remember once in lockdown when we were kind of allowed out and we were allowed to meet people at a social distance. I remember we met you up the heath and we had a walk around the heath with the dog, and then you went off on some ridiculous ramble around half the town. You must have been trying to get your distance up that day. I thought,
I was.
I was.
Yeah. I didn't want to cough to my obsessive behaviour at that point, because I know you'd psychoanalyse me and give me all sorts of grief. So I just went off.
I'd probably just have laughed in your face, to be honest.
Well, I think that particular day, I got so far away. I got about the furthest point away I could from my house, and absolutely opened up. The heavens opened up, and I got soaked to the skin.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember you texting me when you got home, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, well, I didn't fall for that little trick again. So, yeah, the obsessive behaviour, I took the app off and thought, I'm not doing that. But this technology, it was becoming addictive to me. I didn't like it.
Yeah, it's, when you think about something like that, I think there's a bit in the book, isn't there? I don't remember all the details of it. There's a bit about a bit of a ruse that they played on the Reddit website, where they put a button on there and asked their readers to press the button as the time decreased. Do you remember that bit?
I do, yeah.
We're very kind of trigger happy and pressed it immediately. It went from, a minute to 0. But I can't remember all the machinations of it, but it took a while to be able to press it at the lower numbers. And there was absolutely no benefit at all to anybody pressing it. It just became I'll see if I can press it a little bit lower, because then I'll get a different colour badge or whatever it was. There was no material gain, and people were kind of, I seem to remember in the book, they were saying, people were staying up all night so they could press it. Thinking, what? It's just the same principle. It's the same principle as measuring your steps or the distance you're walking. If you get out and you're exercising and you're going for a run or you're going for a nice walk, that's enough. You don't have to be measuring it all the time. This kind of fixation with always got to be better than the last time is so destructive, because I tell you, if nothing else, what it really does is it cements this idea in us that there is a connection between achievement and value, that the more we achieve, the more valuable we are. And it's absolute bunkum. Achievement and value are both important, but they're not connected. You don't become more value. That day when you walked miles and miles and miles and got soaking wet, you didn't become more valuable because you'd walked further than you did before, the day before. You just became wetter.
And tireder.
And tireder. So this whole idea of feeling that we're, worth more because we can walk a bit further, or, we slept another 5 minutes or 5 minutes less, is just absolute bollocks.
Again, there's, leading on from that point, in the book, they were talking about the Running Streak Association in the United States, where, again, you log in, you can now, but when this first started up, the Running Streak Association, you had to go for a certain amount, you would just run for a certain amount of time each day.
Yeah.
So you had to do it every day to keep the streak going. And there was someone that had done it for 45 years. And I know they've got out every day for a run. And the consequences were quite poor. This guy was running when he was really poorly. And Christmas Day he'd be out running there just to keep his streak going, and upset his family and all sorts of things. So it was exactly like normal addictions, where it takes over your life and has negative consequences.
But that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing that I think it's important for people to grasp. The idea that you do something and it gets you into a habit, a good habit, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So anything that you do that, say, gets you running and keeps you running, that's fine. But when it gets to the point where you stop listening to your own body, or you stop worrying about it being congruent with the rest of your life, then you've got a massive problem. And by that time, it's like it's too late, isn't it? Because something else has taken over. As you say, it's no different from, being addicted to alcohol. Really.
No, it isn't. No, because the consequences can be dire, and you carry on even though you know that it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And you have the additional pressure when you're using these new devices. You can log in and everyone else can see how well you've done. You know how many people you see put on Facebook and things about how many miles they've run, or they put on the little map that shows how many miles they've cycled. And it's, the further they go, the better they feel about themselves. But it goes on to the next point I wanted to make. I'm jumping my notes slightly here, but it works in quite nicely about, the amount of likes you get on Facebook for your posts you put on. They called that the first digital drug.
Yeah.
And that works in exactly, you put on your achievements on there, hoping that people are going to put a like on it. And if you don't get any, then it can have, it can make, it can have a negative impact upon you, can't it? An unnecessary one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's that. I must admit, I've never. I mean, how do you feel about that? Have you ever been kind of susceptible to that? I mean, I must admit, when it comes to Facebook, I mean, I used to use it quite a lot, and I still have a Facebook page because I need it for my, in order to have a business one. But I've kind of completely lost interest in Facebook now.
I think a lot of people have. I mean, it was fun sort of 4 years ago. But now it's not fun, is it? They change the algorithms the whole time on there, and only a certain amount of people can see your posts and all this sort of thing. And then you get upset if people aren't seeing your posts, and you wonder why they haven't wished you happy birthday and all this sort of thing. So no, I don't find it particularly fun at all. I think a lot of people, and I was talking to someone about this point exactly at the weekend. They use it for snooping, to look to see what other people are doing, but don't never put on anything on themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting though as well, isn't it? Because the whole idea of using it for snooping is, I can remember I had a client once who used to drive himself to distraction by looking on Facebook at his kind of peer group, and feeling really miserable about how everybody else had a better life than him. And so I mean, obviously we only curate the best moments of our lives. So most of us wouldn't. Although I can think of some people who do put on Facebook, I'm feeling so depressed today, But, mostly we curate the best moments, the highlights of our lives. So if anybody sort of comes in and has a look, if they're feeling, fragile about their own self-worth, it's not very helpful, is it? I mean, it's the last place you want to go, to somewhere where people just putting pictures of themselves sitting around the pool or whatever it might be. I can't think of anything else. Making a great loaf of bread, in my case.
Yeah, that doesn't make me feel. It doesn't have any negative or positive consequences when I look at those. But
it has a positive consequence when I give you a loaf, doesn't it? You ungrateful sod.
No, again, we're going back to actually physically having one, and it's like an MP3 version of your loaf. It's a digital loaf. I can see there. It doesn't do it for me.
You need an analog loaf.
but going back to the Fitbits and stuff, because again, a lot of people it's come up in groups quite a lot over the last 2-3 years probably. People are saying, "Oh, guess how many steps I did today?" And again, there's this consequence of competing not only with yourself, but once it's in the open arena, again using the internet and WhatsApp chat groups and that sort of thing. It puts it almost like a game, then almost like a tournament you're in. And it becomes competitive. But we know that exercise addictions, they go very well with eating disorders. Again, I've seen that come up a lot, because when you're exercising, and again, that came up in the Freddie Flintoff documentary. I know you probably haven't watched it yet, but it's the link between his exercise regime, which he still carries on to this day, has a direct consequence or direct impact upon the way he feels about himself, but on his eating disorder. They go hand in hand with this desperate race, I suppose, or rush to get his weight off in a quick amount of time. It's quite dramatic. And I remember in the documentary he's talking about it was all sparked off really just by an article in The Sun which called him Fat Boy. And he saw that. It was quite a scathing article, But it made him, it turned him to this point where he thought, I can't have that anymore. And I remember him being interviewed after he'd played really well for England to us. And he said, yeah, that's not bad for a fat boy, is it? And you could see in his eyes the sort of the anger, the bitterness that he'd been labelled that way. But it was just a one-off comment like that, or a one-off article that completely changed the way he felt about himself and led to this extreme exercise regime, which led to bulimia.
That's again another similarity between what we're talking about and what we consider to be kind of more recognisable mainstream addictions. There's nothing wrong with having a drink, but if you don't recognise when it becomes a problem, then it's a problem, isn't it? And it's the same with exercising. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with exercising. It's great to exercise, it's important to exercise. But if you don't recognise the point at which it has now become in some way distractive, or it's starting to rule your life to the extent that other things are going by the wayside, then that's not good at all. And the thing with Fred Flintoff, being called fat boy and then responding like that, when that sort of thing happens, we respond in a number of different ways. His personality is clearly one where he will kind of fight back against something like that. He feels like he needs to do something about it, and in responding to that, he went kind of too far the other way, didn't he? When I was called Pillsbury Doughboy at school, I just surrendered underneath it and had a cake.
It's quite amazing to have seen your body shape change over the years. From quite a plump, chubby little chap, which I think even your vicar referred to at your wedding. He said, I knew Graham when he was rounded, he said.
Did he really say that? I think I'd block that out because that was probably triggering a previous trauma.
But there was another point in the book that I was talking about, and again, I've read some of the reviews of his book as well, because I wanted to see how other people perceived it from a non-addict's point of view. So I did read some of the reviews, and all of the reviews have been really good and really positive about it, and everyone said how enlightening they found it. And one of the reviews was saying, I've changed my habits. I do not. In the evenings now, I put my phone before I go to bed. I put my phone out of sight. I put it in a box, and it goes in the kitchen and stays there.
Yeah.
And to try to change his regime to make sure this obsessive behaviour, because they were talking about this app you can download called the Moment app, which is now sort of integrated into iPhones now, where it can track how long you've been on your phone for, and it'll give you a readout.
Yeah, sends you a weekly update of how long you spend on the phone.
Well, I think, again, we saw this addictive behaviour rise incredibly during lockdown, and obviously still continuing, because they always say that boredom is the natural enemy of good behaviour. It's a bit like some, the games that we play on our Xbox or PlayStation. It can, they can fill up that boredom slot, can't they? And I remember the first time you gave me a copy of Red Dead Redemption, and you said, be careful because this will take up large swathes of your life. And it certainly did. And I had to make sure that I did it in reasonable chunks. And the same with Grand Theft Auto. You have to do that as well, because it's designed to keep you in front of the screen. Designed to keep you, and it'll give you little boosts now and again, and it will make you want to go on. And you suddenly look up at the clock, and it's gone midnight, and you're still cracking away.
Yeah, there's something interesting there that I think is worth just investigating, because when you were talking about the book and you said there are a lot of reviews from non-addicts about the book, and a lot of those were positive. Well, actually, a lot of those people who are non-addicts that reviewed the book are addicts because they're addicted in the way that he describes in the book.
Exactly.
This is the whole kind of premise of the book, isn't it? That don't think you're not an addict, because you are. Because if you find it difficult, who amongst us going out thinking, oh, crikey, I've forgotten my phone, doesn't get that sort of little pang of, oh, what am I going to do? Now, that's not a good sign, is it? The thought that you can't be out for a few hours without your phone. And so where was I going with this? Yeah, so when you start kind of talking about things like games, that sort of behaviour that you just described, where you're sort of playing and then you look at the clock and it's like gone midnight, I don't know whether I always kind of felt a level of control over that, but I certainly have one now. If I'm playing something and I think, oh, it's 10 o'clock, 10:30, I want to go to bed, I don't have any problem with stopping it. There probably was a time when I didn't, but I wonder what that sort of experience, the difference in that sort of like a gaming experience is for someone who has other addiction problems from someone who doesn't. Because for instance, sorry to interrupt you, but you have said to me in the past, if you play a game, you have to finish it, don't you? And there was a time when you would have to finish it on the hardest difficulty level, otherwise you couldn't leave it alone.
Yeah, there was, and I have been able to train myself not to do that now. But you're right; it's creating a whole new swathe of people across the world with behavioural addictions. Yeah. I mean, it touches on in the book about the world of Warcraft, where you end up joining in online in a team, and going back to that peer pressure. You can't drop out of that team because something might happen where you're not there or you're not involved in it, and you're going to let your team down, which, it goes on to explain why, kids have been sitting there for hours and hours and hours. And they'd actually end up wetting themselves because they couldn't get up to leave the screen because they would be out of the game for a certain amount of time.
Did you ever do that with sensible soccer? Wet yourself?
I never went that far. I could always stop before I needed to have a loo break. That's for sure. Well, I never. But then again, I never play online. It's only ever with just against the computer.
Yeah, but with something like that, I mean, where the games are very short and they're over very quickly. I can remember. I know that I tend to have that sort of feeling. Oh, I'll just have one more. I'll just go for one more. That's a kind of indication that. I mean, that in and of itself is not damaging, but it's quite a kind of worrying trend. Just going back to World of Warcraft, I've had, this might or might not surprise you, I have had multiple clients that have had a problem with World of Warcraft.
Really? No,
yeah.
It doesn't. No, yeah. It doesn't surprise me. But I wouldn't have. The only surprise part of that sentence is that I wouldn't have thought people would have come and. Whether that's their main reason they've come to see you or not, I don't know. But it's obviously come up in conversations on more than one account.
Yeah, and those. But what it illustrates is that sort of addiction, that sort of technology addiction, can have as destructive an impact on someone's life as any addiction that we consider kind of mainstream or recognised. Anything you're sinking inordinate amounts of time into, to the detriment of the rest of your life, at some point is going to ask you for some sort of payback.
Yeah, it is, which is why there's been a rise in the US, and I'm sure eventually it'll come up over here in the UK, where there's centres, rehab centres for people with exactly those sort of issues, with gaming issues and technology addiction issues.
Yeah. Where you were talking earlier about how when Apple launched the iPad, he wouldn't let his children have it. We must, I would think, be in an era now where that's just not doable anymore. Saying to your children, you can't have a mobile. I mean, I'm sure it does happen, but that must be very much the minority. I think part of what makes this whole situation more difficult is we don't really know where to put the line. We don't really know how much is too much. There's in recent years, it's been a kind of very well-worn path that parents will complain that their children are spending too much time on their phones. I kind of did some research into this, and actually one of the things that I found was that a lot of parents weren't so worried about the time that children were spending on their phones, but parents were worried about how disconnected they were becoming from their children.
Yeah.
I think as children grow up in this sort of environment, they will start to make their own minds up and see their own evidence of dangers of technology. But you're right, there's always going to be that group of people who fall in so deep that they need some help to get out again. And
it's a bit like binge watching as well. That's become a craze since you were able to have programs on demand.
Yeah.
I think in the book it talks about how Netflix saw their they saw the viewing figures increase when they introduced that little bar at the bottom right hand side which says next episode loading. Yeah. And I've done the same. And you think, the last episode is left on a deliberate cliffhanger. And you think, I want to see what happens there. And so I just have time for one more.
One of the things that's interesting about that, because that the phrase binge watch has kind of been received now into our kind of cultural vocabulary, hasn't it? And
yes.
The thing that is really interesting about that is that when you think of the word binge, it's a pejorative. Binge does mean doing something to excess. We're actually embracing the idea that we're behaving destructively to excess, to potentially our detriment. And I find that, that's a worrying thing.
It is a worrying thing, but it's the companies know this. Yeah. That are putting that in front of us. They know that it's addictive, which is why Steve Jobs wouldn't let his kids have the iPad. They know it's problematic. Yeah. But it keeps people.
The only thing I'm likely to binge watch is Bake Off, and
well, I was really on the sewing bee, I expect something like that.
I do like the sewing bee. I used to like the Great Pottery Throwdown, but that's not on anymore, is it? Oh, maybe it's back, isn't it?
I liked that. I thought it was great. I did like that. I must admit.
Anyway,
it was subject matter that interested me, but yes. So that's about it, really. The last little point, okay, which again I found in the book was points, badges, leagues. 3 little words that make games addictive.
Points, badges, leagues, yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the different games I've played over the years, and you think, yeah, it's right. It is. That keeps you integrated. It keeps you addicted. It keeps you at the screen. It keeps you on your console because you want to get the next points. You want to go up the league. So yeah.
It's true, actually. Although I'm just thinking of some of the games I've played recently. So I still think, I enjoyed Red Dead Redemption mostly because I could ride around on a horse looking for wild herbs.
I liked that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, you stay away from the wild herbs. I know what you're like with the wild herbs.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I found in Red Dead as well. Well, the same in GTA. You can go into a pub and come out in the morning when it's light again. You go in, it's dark, come out when it's light, and all the screen goes all wavy and fuzzy. And I thought, this is not good for me.
Did it take you back?
It did take me back, yeah.
Very good.
Well, it's sort of normal ending, really. Is there anything new you've learnt this week since we last spoke?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've learned this week. I've learned how to connect an old analog joystick from an Atari A500 to a MacBook so that I can play sensible World of Soccer.
You still got? You obviously still had a joystick from back when?
Yeah, I still got my old black and yellow zip stick. Do you remember those?
I do. Yeah, they're quite the thing at the time. I'm surprised you haven't worn them out because I used to wear mine out.
No, I didn't wear mine out. And anyway, even if you do wear it out, you can open it up and solder the thingy back on. So that's quite an appropriate thing to have learned on a week when we're talking about technology, don't you think?
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Isn't it just? Well, I think the thing I've learned, which again is appropriate, is a phrase I'd never come across until I was at a dinner party over the weekend, which was a socially distanced one, and there's less than 6 people there. And I was talking to someone who introduced me to the concept of helicopter parenting.
Oh yeah,
have you heard? You've come across that?
Well, I can guess what it means. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's something I hadn't heard of before. But basically, it's a helicopter parent, which sometimes they can be called a cosseting parent. Someone who pays extremely close attention to their child or children's experiences and problems, particularly with educational institutions, but also they sort of hover over them and will not let them move without them knowing about it. They make all the decisions for them. But what came to light during this conversation as well was the use of technology to do that exactly. Having their kids have the tracking applications on their mobiles.
Yeah.
This Lisa, who I was talking to, she was telling me that she could tell from her phone how quickly her boyfriend, the boyfriend of her daughter's car, was driving.
Wow.
I'm sure it might have been her, or she may have said that she knew someone that had done that, but it came up in the conversation. So they could keep an eye on their mobile. They could see whilst their daughter was out in the car with her boyfriend. They could see if their boyfriend was breaking the speed limit or not, or driving erratically.
Well, that's sort of really intensive surveillance of children is, on the one hand, pretty worrying, but on the other hand, guaranteed to provide new clients for me in the years to come.
Yeah, undoubtedly that's going to happen. That's me, really, unless you wanted to cough to a guilty pleasure musically this week. I don't expect you're geared up for one of those.
I haven't prepared. Have you got one then?
Well, no, I know that I said we'd stop, but I'm sort of addicted to doing it now.
Well, in which case we should stop it. But you can. No, I'll tell you what, you can, and I will find one from one of my cheesy playlists that I've got on my phone.
Okay, right, okay.
So go on, tell me what yours is, and then I'll come up with one for you.
Yeah, it's "What Is Love" by Hadaway.
Oh my God! Honestly, you are choosing some absolute shockers. I'm having to completely kind of review the whole way that I've seen your musical tastes all the time that I've known you.
Yeah, you still don't know whether I'm just doing this for effect or not.
Well, I hope you're not, because we agreed that we wouldn't do that. So if you do, then that's shocking, because every single one of mine has genuinely been a song that I really enjoy.
I'm never going to tell you. I'm never going to let you know.
You're never going to give me up, like Rick Astley.
Yeah, no, that's not a guilty pleasure of mine, that one. I think it's dreadful stuff.
Put it this way, whether you're being honest or not, everybody who listens to this has heard you say that you are being honest. So we're all going to assume that your absolutely appalling taste in music is genuinely a reflection of who you are. And I have got a corking guilty pleasure for you that I've just found on my retro playlist.
Okay, go on.
And as I've said every time so far, this is genuinely a track that I very much, in fact, I'm going to listen to it after we've finished while I'm cooking dinner. My guilty pleasure this week is S Club 7, Never Had a Dream Come True.
And you thought there's a question mark over my musical taste. I think you should have a long, hard look in the mirror, young man.
On that note, I'm going to go and feed the dog. Good.
Yeah, I can see Daisy in the background there looking.
She's saying, "Are you going to feed me tonight, you sloppy sod?"
I think she often turns up towards the end of the podcast just to have a look, see what's going on, doesn't she?
She's been sleeping here all the time we've been talking. She always sleeps when you're talking. Right, I've got to go because I've got to do the dinner.
God bless you.
All right, see you anon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook at Sideways Podcast, or you can email us to let us know what you think of the show and with anything else you'd like to ask us. Finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.
And is that you calling, or just the wheels? Just the wheels. The silence appalling, rocking back on my heels. And is that you calling, or just the wheels? Just the wheels. The silence appalling, rocking